Welcome to Modesto Area Spotlight.
Hi, welcome to Spotlight on Modesto. I'm Deborah Dupre, and I'm your host for this event tonight. We're going to be hosting a very special guest. Miriam Gomez and Derrick Broze are here. They've come into Modesto and they've offered to give us a night of activism. So earlier today, we were out on the street with our signs talking about the mandate. And despite how you might feel about mandates, we wanted to open up the conversation and just discuss things like, when is it okay to turn somebody away from a business? Or when is it okay to turn somebody away at a doctor's office or at a pet clinic? So we just wanted to embrace this moment and give people the opportunity to talk about this subject, because it's become very prominent in the state of California as well as in our country and even around the world. How we communicate with each other and how we bring people back together at this time. Because right now we're finding that more and more people feel uncomfortable, they feel stressed, and they feel very pressured around being out in public, and who they're going to be around this time with everything that's been going on and everything that's been processed. So, Derrick and Miriam is going to open with a nice meditation for us tonight. This is September 17 in Modesto, California. And Derrick is going to give his viewpoint on his story. He's going to talk a little bit about his background and how he got involved in this situation. And I think if you face this with an open heart and an open mind, you'll see that sometimes you can work together as a family and you can come together as one and help each other instead of working against each other. So he does have a book here. It's called The Conscious Resistance Trilogy. And in this book, it's broken down into 3 sections. And I highly recommend that you sit down and maybe take a look at this. Some of the things that he talks about in here are very vocal around how you start making your own garden, maybe growing some of your own food, planting trees in your community, getting your community more involved, figuring out solutions to how you're going to work together. And also, we'll put some links below, but there's also something called the freedomcellnetwork.org and the Conscious Resistance Network that he created. And I hope that you get something out of this tonight and that you will reach out and leave a comment if you feel impassioned to do so. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy the event.
Welcome everybody. I'm Melissa Kelly. I'm the owner of Holy Space Modesto, and I would like to welcome you tonight to the presentation. I didn't really prepare anything to say, but I do have a couple of thoughts. I really, well, first I'll just tell you how I came across Derrick, because I've only been following you for a few months, and you were on some other podcasting shows that I respect people and their opinions, and it wasn't only because of that I felt called to respond to your offer to come out here. It was because when I saw you speak, I not only heard what you said, but I saw your heart, and that your heart is really in this. And Modesto doesn't get a lot of attention for people coming through, so I just felt called when you put that out there. It was like an immediate yes, and you pretty much said an immediate yes back, and so that's what we want, right? We want that conviction of like, we're doing this, and so I want to bring that energy all the way through into what we're doing. So if you are not following Stand Up Modesto, please do so. And there's also a Telegram page that we are connecting with the Freedom Angels to bring more resources that the Freedom Angels have to our community, which is community building, homeschool resources, and just a lot of general community support that we can start to build on and support each other through the times that we are in and probably will continue to be for a little while. So that's why I invited Derrick and Miriam, and I look forward to the presentation. So thank you guys for being here.
Yes, thank you. So before we bring Miriam on, I'll just say this is important, right? If you don't know somebody else here, if you come here completely not connected to Melissa or other groups, make sure that before you leave today, you do get connected. You know, the reason we're doing this tour, we'll tell you more about it throughout the night. The reason we're away from home for the next 2 months is because we think there's a really crucial time right now for all of our different communities to start figuring out how we can work together with a lot of the things we're facing. So if you feel like you're unplugged and you want to get plugged in, connect with everybody here. And Miriam's going to share her meditation now, so thank you guys.
Meditation grounds us. Meditation helps us calm the nervous system. It helps us feel more alert, more focused. It helps us take more information in and really absorb it. And so I'm just going to guide us through a short meditation. And this is going to be kind of like a check-in with yourself, with your body. In this check-in, I recommend practicing it in the morning, at night before going to bed, or throughout the day, while you're waiting for your doctor's appointment, or you're in the car, not at the red light, not driving. You just got in your car and just wow, I have an interview and I'm so nervous, or something like that, or I'm about to go to a meeting and all this stuff. And connecting to our body just kind of helps us become aware of our state of being, and if it's conducive or not to how we want to move forward in life. Does that make sense? Yeah? So I'm going to take off my shoes. You might think that's weird, but that's how I get comfortable. Go ahead and get comfortable. Maybe you take off your shoes, maybe you don't. I like to cross my legs. So if that's you, go ahead and cross your legs. If not, keep them in front of you, and if your feet reach the ground, make sure they're nice and flat onto the surface of the ground. Yeah, so I used to have really bad anxiety, and whenever I started practicing this, it started becoming kind of a little bit of a habit, and it was kind of because I practiced it often, my brain, my nervous system, my body kind of already knew where we were going whenever I would just try to take a deep breath and bring my awareness back here to the inside, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And so I could reach a space of peace and feeling more grounded, more centered, way quicker. And I was then I felt comfortable to move forward through that. Versus a space of anxiety and I'm shaking and my breath is very short. My heart is racing, my pits are sweating. And I had an interview and I had to go meet people, and this was really important to me, so I wanted to do good. So then I could just calm down, breathe, and set forward some intention of this is going to turn out really good. This is going to be really good. I'm going to get so much out of this. The people who are going to meet me, whatever, are going to get so much out of this, Versus being in front of people, present in front of them, and then and then I'm not wait a minute, I had something really good to share with them, or I wanted to ask them about this, instead of being focused, centered. So, if anything, it just lowers our stress and it helps us enjoy our day a little bit more. If anything, it just helps us not be super quick to get angry. not be super quick to yell at somebody, not be super quick to answer with like, out of a place of like anger or resentment and things like that. So meditation doesn't have to be like the Buddha, but it can be. Right now, this is a sitting meditation, and for one, we're doing this because we're sitting here, but it's something that you can do anywhere you're at. And when we're done, I'll tell you other ways that you can meditate. If you feel like you're one of those people that are like, oh, my brain can't stop, like with the monkey brain, or like the monkey mind just constantly jumping from one thought to the other, one thought to the other, one thought to the other. That's really fine. We're all human. We have thoughts. They're going to keep going. That's what we always practice. But there's ways that we can help kind of calm that mind down. And the monkey goes to rest a little bit, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. So I'll share those with you in just a moment. Okay, so make sure you're nice and comfortable. We're going to check in with our back. Make sure it's nice and straight, comfortably straight, not like sticking out and forcing it. Just comfortable, straight. Your hands can sit on your knees, on your lap. But make sure that they're not intertwined like that, interlaced. You can go ahead and close your eyes if you like, or keep them open. And if you keep them open, choose a spot in front of you, maybe 2-3 feet in front of you, to gaze onto, something that's not going to move. And we're going to start by breathing in through our nose, filling up our bellies, and then sighing it all out. Okay?
How are you guys doing? If you can still hear. Can you still hear? Hey, thank you guys for being here with us tonight. I hope you enjoyed Miriam's meditation. Give her another round of applause. So, it's 7:30. You guys want the 30-minute version or the hour version? Or 45-minute version? How deep do you want to go? Same information, I'll just focus and accentuate certain areas more than others, depending on how you like to go. I want to share a story with you tonight and tell you guys some solutions. Miriam was kind of introducing a lot of what we're going to be touching on tonight. And most of the things I think we're going to be covering, I would assume, but I don't want to assume, that we're generally aware of some of the problems going on in the world, vaccine mandates, vaccine passports, and not just those specific issues, but what they represent in a larger context, and threats to liberty and privacy to the future in a lot of ways. So we're going to talk all about that, but I want to give you just a bit of background about myself in case some of you are unfamiliar with the tour and what we're doing here. So myself and Miriam, we're on a tour. It's a 28-city tour. We are 7 or 8 cities in. We'll be touring all of September and all of October across the U.S. It's called the Activation Tour. We're doing meditations. We are doing this talk that I'm about to share here. We play music, and we do things like we did earlier this afternoon, where we went out to pass out flyers and talk to local businesses. In some cities, here's the keys. So. In some cities, we are, cleaning up community gardens. We are, volunteering at urban farms. We are cleaning up parks, beach cleanups. We've done other kind of protests, sign waving, passing out flyers. We planted some trees. We'll be doing some tiny home builds for the homeless population in Vegas, just different things like that. And that's part of the tour as well. We call those community action days. And the goal being that, we don't want to just come to town and share our message. We want to contribute however we can. And we also want to encourage others who are in the communities that we're visiting to come out and get involved in their own communities, right? And for some people, it might be the first time that they're taking those steps. And the tour can kind of be hopefully a little bit of inspiration and a push to make that a more regular part of their lives. Because my work is very much solution-based and action-based, You know, the solutions are not just going to land in your lap, and I'm here to tell you tonight that they're also not just as easy as vote for a politician and assume everything's going to get better, or sit around and do nothing. You know, it's going to take a little bit of effort, energy. It might take some lifestyle changes. It might take being uncomfortable. It might take working with people who maybe you didn't think you'd get along with. All kinds of things. So we're going to talk a lot about those solutions tonight. That's what the tour is about. And myself, my name is Derrick Broze. I'm 36 years old, originally from Houston, Texas. We currently live in Mexico. We've been out there for the last year and a half looking for some land, and we're building an intentional community out there. I'll tell you guys more about that in a bit. For the last 12 years, I've pretty much been living a 24/7, as much as possible, life dedicated to activism in different forms, and then also as a journalist. So in 2010, I started to have my wake-up experience and questioning things about the world, learning about a lot of things that are happening right now. 10 years ago, people were warning about some of these things, and they seem crazier. Now they're kind of obvious at this point, if you're paying attention. You got one eye kind of open, you can see what's happening. So I started to wake up and started to question things, and very quickly was just like, okay, well, what can I do about it? I don't know, something just told me, like, don't just talk about it, don't just get stuck in the paranoia and all that stuff, but really focus on solutions. So I started an activist group called the Houston Freethinkers, and we were very active in Houston from 2010 to about 2018. We helped Houston become the only city in the country to kick the TSA off the bus lines, because they had launched a program that basically said, if you choose to ride public transportation, that you were going to be subject to drug sniffing dogs, random bag checks, and random ID checks just to ride the bus. And so we organized, we just got 200 pissed off Houstonians and some lawyers, and showed up at the Metro board meeting, and within 2 meetings, within 2 weeks, they shut the entire program down. You know, we did a lot of awesome things like that. Community garden builds, protests, skill shares, house, you know, I lived in a community house where we do community garden work, and music and art. It was a wonderful time, and it really helped me see the power of community and the power of people coming together and organizing. And that's why I focus on it so much. But throughout that time, I also recognized, at first as an activist, and then just, you know, as a person, that the media really wasn't doing their job, or even doing less of their job now. But in 2010, 11, 12, around this time, when I first started to think as, maybe I could be a journalist, maybe I could do this, you know, because these people seem to suck at it. They're not very good at it. Either they're not trying that hard, or they, I don't know, something's wrong, right? And I just started to see that firsthand when you're out there doing a protest of some kind, and the media turns around and reports on you, and it totally, you know, they come over and act all friendly, and hey guys, what are you out here for today? And talk to you and take pictures and smile and wave. And then the nightly news comes on and they make you look crazy, or the newspaper article comes out and they lie about what you said, or they take it out of context. And this happened enough times that it's like, wow, man, I knew things were corrupt, like, you know, CNN, whatever, national media, but even my local media, they're doing this kind of stuff. And so I started diving into journalism and taking it very seriously, getting to investigate journalism, and I've been able to make a living doing that for the last 8 years or so. I currently write for The Last American Vagabond. I have my website, consciousresistance.com, where I've produced about a dozen different documentaries, from the 5G kind of EMF concern, to child trafficking, to indigenous struggles, to digital surveillance, a number of issues. Those can all be found for free on my website. You can watch them at consciousresistance.com. I started writing books. The books can also be downloaded for free on the website. And just, this is my life now. I was committed to this, but this started 10, 11, 12 years ago. And I really feel, though, that my waking up experience actually started prior to that. This was the way I woke up to the political nature of the world, and realizing that, whoa, a lot of the crap I was told in the public school system is not really true, or it's a kind of Disney version of history. It's very sort of sugar-coated, let's say. And that's an important part of the equation, of course. But actually, for me, my journey started about 5 years before that. In 2005, I was 20 years old, and I got addicted to crystal meth, and I went to prison. After high school, I basically spent the better part of 2 years just kind of being the drunk guy at the party, and taking pills and blacking out, and just back and forth, and just dealing with drug addiction, And then it ended up with me going to prison. I tried crystal meth in January 2005. By November, it was locked up, and went through a fun kind of 10-month period to the bottom, and then fell down a little more, and then went to prison. And it was a real reality check, I guess you could say. You know, I thought I knew something at 20 years old, but that showed me I really didn't know much about life at that point. But what it did show me is that I had an option. I had an option to decide which path I wanted to take. You know, because for me, and I only know this in hindsight, I didn't realize this at the time. But for me, the reason I was using drugs, the reason I was hopping from one thing to the next, just kind of trying to fill this void, is because I had all this trauma from when I was a little kid. And as I started to go deeper and meditate while I was in prison and pray and things of that sort, just kind of connect to the Creator, connect to myself, I started to see that, wow, I've been depressed since I was a little kid. My earliest memories are being 4 or 5 years old and visiting my birth father in prison for his drug addiction, for his drug problems, right? And I remember it clearly. So as a young kid, I was very sad, very depressed, like 6, 7 years old. I remember being really sad, depressed little kid. And then as I got to become a teenager, that sadness eventually turned to anger. You know, it's like the dark side, right? It's like, okay, well, I felt like this anger was going to make me stronger, you know, so I just kind of put a rock around my heart and just became very angry and destructive. I was also, you know, an intelligent kid at the time, but nobody knew me as that kid. They knew me as the kid that was throwing chairs at teachers and getting arrested and getting fights because I just was, you know, lashing out, just trying to deal with all this stuff, right? I didn't really have the tools to do so. And then, by the time I got out of high school, I tried drugs. I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. It didn't take long to figure out that's obviously not the answer. But it was, you know, it was that experience, though, of getting locked up and essentially feeling completely powerless. You know, at this point, it's like, I can keep calling my mom on the phone, my girlfriend, my lawyer, whatever, and I can cry all I want, but it's like, you know, when you're looking at the calendar and you're like, I'm not going home until next year, and there's literally nothing I can do about this. Like there's, you know, no matter what big injustice it might be, and a lot of times it is, that's where you're at, right? It's just this, wow, like really powerless, but also, I think that's sometimes where we actually find our real power, those moments where we think like, man, I can't do this, I can't take it, like I'm just done. And then you find the strength to go on, you know, and it's a huge lesson. And so I realized, like, okay, I'm here. Like, you know, to make matters even more fun, the week I got arrested, my father was getting released from prison. So it was just like this, oh, great, here I go, managed to do my whole life, and now I'm continuing the family tradition, if you will. But I decided I didn't want to do that. You know, I just started to journal a lot. That was one of the first things. It was just like, I had to get all this stuff out of here, on here. And I will say that I was able to get myself sober. I quit crystal before I went to prison. It was just that once I stopped, I was still, my head was messed up from just being on all this stuff for a while, and I needed time to decompress. Our brains and our bodies are really amazing. Like, sometimes I'm like, wow, how can I even still form a sentence? But here I am today. But it's because we have beautiful healing bodies and minds, and when we give them the opportunity and we nourish ourselves with good food and good people, then you can recover from some really disturbing things. So, yeah, I was just in a really bad place, but I was able to get sober, but it was just kind of one of those stereotypical things of like, oh, I know how I can go make some money real quick, and I went to go do one more deal, and that one more deal was it. But it's what I needed for one reason or another. I do want to say, and I think it's always important to emphasize this, that I don't credit the prison system for, you know, turning me into the person I am today or anything like that. Those places are horrible institutions that do not rehabilitate people. They're not about like any sort of specialized care or, you know, anything, because I mean, I met a lot of brilliant people in prison of all ages, from 17 to, you know, 67 years old, and some of them are dead, some of them are still cycling in and out of those institutions, some of them figured it out before I ever did. You know, I did 18 months, I got locked up, went back and forth a couple times, and ended up as a felon. And so while I was there, I chose to use my time just to really start journaling, starting to understand where is this trauma coming from. And also, I got into meditation. I discovered Zen Buddhism, meditation specifically, but it doesn't really matter. You know, I think it's really, as Miriam was saying, it can be riding a bike, it can be going on a walk, it can just be sitting quietly in your favorite chair. It was, for me, the space that allowed me to, oh yes, water would be excellent. It was the space that allowed me to kind of have that opportunity to start saying, why do I feel this way? Where did this come from? You know, what is this all about? And just probe and ask those important questions. So that was really the beginning of me starting to dive deep and dig deep. And yeah, I ended up getting out in October 2008. I was a felon, state felon. I had the experience of, now I'm getting judged. They like to say, you know, us felons, like to say you have an X on your back or you have a bullseye on your back, because even though you've done your time, you paid your debt to society, however they sell it to people, people still treat you differently. There's still a stigma around that, and people kind of like, whoa, felon, what does that mean? Even though to me it's kind of silly, because the US is such a massive prison state that nearly everybody has a friend or a family member that's been in prison or locked up on probation, like some way. People who are not violent criminals at all, who just get mixed up with things. But I got out, and you have that experience. Oh, we can't rent you here. Oh, you can't get hired here. You can't do this. So it was this coming back into the world. Not only was I coming back into the world, like dealing with those circumstances, but at the same time, I was also the happiest I'd ever been. For the first time in my life, it felt like this cloud had lifted. Not only like I was off all the crazy drugs, but also the depression had lifted, and I remember the moment I was able to just enjoy the sunset. Wow, it's really beautiful. I kept taking I felt like I was born for the first time, honestly. It was like I could finally feel okay, and it was just excited about life. And that's when I was coming out of prison into that time, and then I started to see this, like, wow, I'm being treated differently as a felon. It encouraged me to want to learn more about the drug war. I read some books, watched a documentary, yada, 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 that was it. And in 2009, 2010, and I haven't looked back since then. But again, for me, it really started with going to prison, getting locked up, starting to do that, like, inner work. And I don't really care who you are, how big you are on the internet, and how, whatever kind of self-images we want to portray. Each of us have doubts, fears, and insecurities that manifest themselves in different ways. What might be really difficult for one person is totally nothing to another, right? What might seem like, wow, you're so silly. How do you feel that way? You're beautiful. I can't believe you think that, right? But maybe inside the person is like dealing with some really difficult stuff. So, because I had that experience first, and then I started to wake up to the political world, it's always shaped the way I do my work, right? I came up with the website, the idea, the conscious resistance, that came to me in 2013 because when I got out, after I got out of prison, I continued my interest in spirituality and like developing and praying, just learning these different sides of myself, but I also started becoming an activist. And for the first couple of years, it was this really dualistic lifestyle where I would be out here with my friends like we were doing today, holding signs and passing out flyers and doing that kind of thing. And then I would be over here with my friends that are meditation circles or, whatever consciousness groups, things going on, and I just kind of had these two different circles. And every time I tried to bridge that gap, it just didn't work, because I'd be over here with my spiritual circles and my meditation circles, and we'd be doing our thing, and I'd say, guys, have you heard about this latest bill they're trying to pass, or have you heard about, this thing, this police shooting or whatever? And they'd say, don't talk about it, you're gonna manifest it, don't talk about it, don't bring the bad vibes. And it's just like, okay, I guess there's no interest in this. And then I'd be over here with my activist friends and activist community, and it was kind of a similar response when I would try to talk about God or just my interest in meditation or just whatever weird stuff I was into. When I would talk to these people, they would just, what are you talking about, man? Are you high? What's wrong with you? Like, they weren't receptive. It was a lot of the activists I knew at the time, and I don't know if it was just the time, but a lot of the activists I was working with, most of them seemed atheist or just not interested in spirituality, religion, etc., etc. And so I just had these two different circles, and I just, okay, I guess that's just how it is. But then in 2013, I felt like I had another shift, and that phrase, the conscious resistance, came to me. And for me, that just means the recognition, the understanding that the struggle for a more free and ethical, just, better world that I think most of us are fighting for, it's not only going to come from exposing the governments and the corporations and the Gateses and the other Rockefellers and whatever names you want to point to. That's definitely a part of the equation. That's why I do my journalism, because that is important. But that's not the only part of the experience we're having here. It also, I believe, is about that inner journey. Each of us taking time to work through whatever traumas, doubts, fears, and insecurities, because the state, the corporations, what I call the people who run these things, the predator class, they will take advantage of those things. And they are doing that now. Right now, they're weaponizing compassion, they're weaponizing fear. People who are good people who have fallen into fear, or people who are good people who believe they're acting out of compassion, that's being weaponized against them, right? So, the more in tune you are with yourself, and who you are, and rooted in that, and knowing what are my principles, who am I? Just what is that? How do you even answer that, right? the more you understand that, the harder it is for some political party or politician or anybody to sway you, right? You can talk to somebody, you can hear their ideas, but if it doesn't make sense, you're like, no, I have my foundation, I know what makes sense to me, and that doesn't make sense, right? But if you're just kind of going along blindly in life, other people will fill your cup. They will pour into your vessel whatever it is they want, and that's what's happened to a lot of people. They don't really know where they stand. They don't know. They're just kind of living this life without taking a stand, having principles, right? And so they're being directed and swept up in somebody else's game. So for me, the conscious resistance is about bringing the two of those things together. That's why we incorporate meditation. That's why I also think it's about balancing the masculine and feminine. You might notice I'm a little bit more energetic, and Miriam's more soft-spoken and got a lot to say, a lot to get out. But I think it's that balance that's important, right? And so we try to incorporate that element because I know that, for example, we're about to get into this is what we can do about all this stuff. If you had come to me 15, 16, 17 years ago when I was dealing with my trauma, I would have listened to you like, well, vaccine passports, what, they're doing all these crazy things, right? But I wasn't in a place where I could even do anything about it. I was just trying to, to be frank, not kill myself that day. Try to make it through another day because I was deep in that struggle, that trauma, right? And for me, I was using drugs as a way to escape. Other people have other ways, whether you've never used drugs or not. Some people are, maybe they shop their problems away, or they gamble away, or they drink, or they just have other unhealthy habits that are sort of an escape, right? We all deal with traumas in different ways. But if you had come to me with this information, I would have heard you, I would have listened to you, but I just didn't have the tools to do anything about it, right? And so I think about that more, like how many of our brothers and sisters out there around the world are in the midst of their trauma, emotional, psychological, mental, especially the last year and a half, it's been pretty traumatic for a lot of people in different ways. And if you're in that position, it's much harder to say, I want to come out here with you guys, right? I want to come to the streets and help you grow this community movement, right? If you're having trouble getting out of bed that day, it's not very likely you're going to want to come out and do these kinds of things, right? So to me, these are the same struggle. Help each other heal, help each other grow, be there support systems, whether that's religion, spirituality, whatever you have that can help you connect and recognize that there is something much bigger than each of us. And I believe this is the reason that we're here. I believe that we are here to be here at this time on this planet to affect what's going on and to shape it, not to be swept up in someone else's vision. So that's who I am, that's what this story's about. Let's get into the real meat of the talk. Thank you guys. So the talk I've been giving is called This is What We're Facing and This is What We Can Do About It. And I'm just going to spend just a brief couple of minutes on the This is What We're Facing. Because again, I think most of you get what's happening. I mean, if you've kept up with any sort of social media, alternative social media, you've seen the stories, but let's just do a brief rundown. We can talk about Australia, we can talk about Italy, France, China, of course, parts of the US, people being locked into their homes with curfews, people in some places like Australia being fined for leaving their homes, $5,000, cops in the grocery stores to make sure that you're buying only essential items. There was checkpoints set up in the US, Rhode Island, Connecticut, last year when they were saying New York was a hotspot, they had all these checkpoints around that part of the country, checking people's license plates to make sure, oh, you just came from New York, well, you got to quarantine, make sure you quarantine. We're going to be doing random house checks. We will be coming to make sure. Yeah, that's the US. That's happening here. There's another one that's just worth mentioning. I've been mentioning this one lately because I think it's a real good example of some of the insanity that's happened, but there's been so many stories that have just, it's been a busy year, right, trying to keep up with everything going on. Anybody else have need to step away after a while, just like, wow, I can't keep up. I mean, I think that's part of the agenda, to make you overwhelmed and not, like, I don't know what's what, I just forget it, I don't want to know anymore, right? You gotta, that digging and researching is,
blue pills.
digging and researching is valuable, but we need to be able to remember to find that balance again, right? Because if we just let ourselves get all stressed out, as Miriam loves to point out to people, when we run into people who are stressing, that's going to hurt your immune system even more. You're going to, that's definitely not going to make you any healthier. You're just sitting at home stressing, whether that's about COVID or the Great Reset, either way. You got to know that you are doing what you can to protect your family and your friends, and that you made a step to be here today, right? That's a huge step, I think, and hopefully you guys get connected after today, those who haven't, and things progress and continue to move forward. That's showing that you care enough about yourself and your family to be here today. That's a big step. So, we've seen, my buddy in Melbourne tells me that the government calls it the Iron Ring. They have this checkpoint all around the entire city, and they can't leave at all. New Zealand locked down over one case, most recently, and all kinds of other crazy things over the last year. We've also seen censorship of people trying to report on these things, including myself. Censorship of people trying to talk about, including medical doctors, about alternatives to the jab. At this point, it's like, that's all you can accept. Like, nothing else is going to be promoted as an alternative, whether that's vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, ivermectin, or whatever. And again, I'm not here to endorse any specific treatment or anything. I just think that ultimately, that's again them making it clear, we're in charge. You're not allowed to look at that information. Accept what you're being told. This is what's healthy. This is what's good for you. I mean, that's really scary stuff. So just kind of take note of that. All the different things we've witnessed the last years. Censorship of people talking about alternative treatments. Censorship of people trying to report on the authoritarianism. Criminalizing protests. Definitely, that's something that's happening. It's already in place in Australia, where people are being fined like $1,000 just for going out to protest. But at this point, they're like, if we don't stop what's happening now, we don't want to know where it could go next, right? You establish the precedent for the government to have that much power, and and their corporate partners as well. So people are pushing back, people are fighting back, but we've also now clearly got to the point where we're familiar with the term vaccine passports, right? Vaccine certificate, etc. It simply means papers, please. Show us your health status to enter our establishment. We're at the point now where former Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security under Obama, this woman, Julia, I can't remember her last name, but she needs to just be nothing violent, so she definitely needs to be exposed as a traitor to anything that is good and free and just, because she's written two different editorials calling for a no-fly list for the unvaccinated and just further targeting of it. So these are the kinds of things, these ideas are being floated in the mainstream now, the New York Times, Washington Post. This isn't just some fringe, oh yeah, it's just one guy with an opinion, right? No, these are people, government officials, both former and in power, and we're seeing it all tomorrow. And the vaccine passport, which we just came from the Bay Area yesterday, and yes indeed, some of you maybe have experienced it recently, you definitely can't go indoors anywhere in San Francisco itself if you don't show proof of vaccination. Some of the outside areas, Richmond and Oakland, they seem less concerned, but it seems like it probably will expand from there. It's most of the major cities are probably going to, maybe you guys have an opportunity here because you're a bit smaller, but I wouldn't sit around and assume that it would never happen and that there won't be some tyrannical city council member try to propose something like that. I would definitely keep an eye on what they're up to and what they're working on. But it's becoming a thing now. So in Australia, in Israel, in France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, New York City, San Francisco, we could list a few others. People cannot enter restaurants, gyms, bars. And you might be like, oh, well, I'll work out at home. I don't go to the bar. I like to cook at home anyways, right? Even if you feel that way, it's about the principle of what's happening, right? Because eventually it will be something that you like to do, right? And it's like, oh, now I care about it. They took away my video games or something. You need to care about it now, because even if it doesn't affect you at the moment, it's not a good precedent, this idea that, this is, people get triggered by this, but it's segregation. Look at it, don't think about it in the historical context, just take that word for what it is. Segregate, separate things, segregate something, and by the way, I forgot to start this way, we just need to do a little bit of house cleaning, but can I get all the vaxxed on this side and the unvaxxed on this side? What do you got? Nobody's cooperating. So far, none of this stops, nobody's moved or I think you guys get what's going on here. But, so this is what we're facing, right? This push for these vaccine passports. I want to say a couple of things on that, and then we're going to focus on what we can do. The vaccine passport, it's important for you to recognize that it is just a step in a direction that is much bigger than what we're witnessing. If you haven't quite got to the point to recognize that COVID isn't just about COVID and protecting your health, I think a lot of you get that, right? But even deeper than that, what we're witnessing, especially if you've only had the experience of waking up just because of COVID or the last recent year and a half or months, it's a much bigger agenda that predates COVID and everything we've seen, right? And we don't have the time or the space, and I'm not here to talk and focus on the problems, but if you want to see documentary, fact-based evidence of this, you can visit my website and see some of our documentaries and things. The point here is that the vaccine passport is just a larger agenda towards stepping towards a biometric ID. A biometric ID, which will include retina, face print, and it will start with health information, as they're starting now, but it won't be long before your bank information is on there, your actual credit score, and this will evolve Have you heard of the social credit score? You guys familiar with this concept? So this is already happening in China, and I believe this is definitely what's coming next for the places who already have vaccine passports. So you're familiar with your credit score. You go out, you rack up debt, your score reflects that. It's hard to get, rentals or get a loan and those kinds of things. And I think there's already problems with those systems themselves. But now you take it away from just financial things, social credit, right? So your social behavior determines this score, right? And in China, the program they have, Sesame Credit System, they wrote a book all about this. It's called the Yellow Book. And they describe how the system is going to operate once it's throughout the whole country. Right now, they just have it in parts of the country. They say that people who display antisocial behavior won't be able to take a single step. They won't even be able to leave their homes. So what does that mean? How does that work? Well, for one, they get to define what antisocial means, right? So maybe it means you're an anti-vaxxer. You posted weird things on social media that go against the World Health Organization or, whatever it could be, right? Those are the kind of things that would bring your score down. That's antisocial, or maybe posting something bad about the government. Or just, hey, I think maybe I don't want a vaccine. I'm concerned about, the most basic statement. These kinds of things, if it goes against what they consider to be good behavior, it's antisocial, it could affect your score. This is already happening, guys. Chinese citizens in the last couple of years, over 1 million Chinese residents have been denied the right to fly out of their own homes because their score was too low. So if you protest and you speak out against the government, or there's things like, if you didn't pay your taxes, or if you didn't drop off your recycling on time, those kinds of things can also affect yourself. If you jaywalk, right, like that, well, how would they know? Because they already have much of what the U.S. is working on building right now, which is facial recognition cameras around the entire country that can locate anyone with anywhere. As of a couple of years ago, they said within 7 minutes. I would imagine they've got it down to under 5 at this point. But, so you jaywalk, and nobody's looking, but the facial recognition camera is looking. And what they do actually in parts of some of the smart cities that are already in South Korea and parts of China is like, say there's like the big digital billboards and I just jaywalked and they caught me on camera. My face pops up there with my name and stuff. It's just like violator, jaywalker. It's a publicly shamed. It's social engineering, right? So the government doesn't have to come up to you and hold a gun to your head to do it. They just create a system that, for one, you're going to need this ID to get in anywhere. You're going to need your little QR code to pay for things, right? They make this super convenient, all in one, everything you need, just one app to rule them all. And from there, use it for banks, use it for health, use it for all this thing. It becomes super convenient, super easy, and a lot of people will just walk right into it. But as we talk about the score going down, if they can give you, perks and benefits for being a good pet, and clearly they can penalize you and cause harm to you as well. And as I said, their goal is if you display antisocial behavior, you'll lose basically all privileges, because they don't think you have rights. They think they have privileges that the government grants to you, right? We all know that's not true, right? Everybody understands that your rights are inherent to you as a living being and between you and your creator. It doesn't come from the Constitution or the government. The Constitution can outline some ideas, documents like that, but ultimately it's something that you have regardless of what they say. Now, of course, like many of us are finding out now, we only really have what we're willing to stand up for. So that's where we're going to get to decide what that looks like. But that's the vision that they have, this world of vaccine passports, biometrics. It's part of a larger picture of what is known as technocracy. You guys familiar with the term, the Great Reset at this point, Agenda 2030? Agenda 2030, it's 2021, guys. We got 9 years. This is the decade where these people believe they're going to transform the world. Smart cities, technocratic state. They're going to sell it in all kinds of convenience and fun and I love technology, some positive aspects of it. That world, maybe in a different time, with more benevolent people, could be really awesome. But that's not really the cards we got dealt. And it also could mean, you've heard them, actually, I don't even have to speculate. You will own nothing and be happy. That's their words, the World Economic Forum, the people behind the Great Reset, people behind Agenda 2030, partnering with the United Nations, and hundreds of multinational corporations, the credit card companies, MasterCard, Visa, the banks, etc. It's the same old, again, if you've been down those rabbit holes, you know what I'm talking about. So, they have a vision. They're spending trillions of dollars invested into this. They've been working on this for generations before most of us were even paying attention. While we were sleeping, they've been building. That's how they think. Their families have been in power for a long time, some of them kind of behind power. They don't want to be known, very well known, but they're there, this predator class. And they're driving this towards their vision of this what I call the technocratic state. So what we're here to talk about tonight is how do we avoid getting swept up in revision? How do we instead exit from these systems which have the potential to enslave us and create, support, build, etc., better systems, right? Because I don't personally believe that we can stop what's happening, like, for example, like the larger picture. Does that mean you can't stop vaccine passports on a local level? No, not at all. That means you absolutely can. I think there's going to be pockets of different places that are able to keep their, their places free, and others where it might be a little too late. I have no idea why my friends are still in New York City. I have no idea what they're doing there. But some people are like, this is where I'm born, this is where I was raised, I'm going to hold it down. We're going to keep fighting. And honestly, we need people like that everywhere. If we all left and went to one place, then maybe that's not the best strategy, right? We need freedom to reign everywhere as much as possible. So I don't know that we can stop like their entire vision from coming to fruition and everything is subverted. There's no button that we can press to just turn it all off, right? Because I've been writing about this for years as a journalist, and my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, which is what we're going to focus on tonight, you can download it for free, theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. In that book, I talk about numerous examples of the rise of facial recognition, the rise of AI, and there are people much smarter than myself, privacy organizations, digital rights lawyers who've been warning for years now, saying that we need, I'm not really someone to call for government action. It's not really my path, my choice, typically. But in the case of facial recognition and AI, maybe we need to make an exception. Maybe there needs to be, what they're calling for is like, we need a pause. We need a temporary moratorium on these things until we can figure out how do we safely walk into this world that, again, could have some benefits, but could also mean the end of free humanity in many ways. I mean, the real threats of the rise of AI and facial recognition, biometrics, and bring in the health kind of biometrics, the health security state. It's real, guys. It's a very concerning world that we're potentially walking into. And this is their decade, as I said, to transform. So for me, if I can't stop it, there's no way to make all the computers go away. We can't just go, this is not something I'm advocating for, and it wouldn't be the solution. You can't just go, let's destroy the NSA database in Utah. That's got all the data, right? That'll solve it, right? No, they got it somewhere else too, backed up, right? This machine is marching forward, is my point. But I do believe we have the opportunity to say, that does not align with the vision I have for myself, my family, my future, progeny. I'm going to say no thanks, and we're going to focus on what can we build outside of that system. How can we build a counter economy? How can we exit from their systems and build something better? Because if we allow ourselves to fall into, different traps, I'll name 3 really quick, we will get swept up in their vision. They will swallow us whole. If we just stand still and assume somebody's going to come save the day. There's no X-Men, there's no Avengers out there who can save the day, guys. If you are the local Avengers here, you've all been nominated, welcome. You are the superheroes of this community, you get to connect and work with people, right? 3 traps to be careful for. Defeatism, normalcy bias, and division. If you haven't noticed yet, the division is part of the conspiracy. The division is part of the conspiracy. Vaxxed versus unvaxxed, left versus right, Democrat, Republican, black, white, whatever. These people will use anything they can if they think that we will allow ourselves to be divided and separated these ways. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't have your own beliefs and you all need to hold hands and pretend like we agree on everything. That's not the world I'm aiming for, guys. Even in a group like this, I would never make the assumption that we're all going to agree on every single topic, right? Or that we all like the same food or music or whatever. But I do think that most of you here generally probably think it's wrong to use force or violence against me. Probably would be the kind of people to, want the government to throw me in a cage for my opinions or my beliefs, right? And so, if you agree with that, then I give you that same mutual respect, and we can probably get along. We can agree to disagree, we can have healthy discussions, we can go our own way, but as long as you recognize that it's wrong, immoral, unethical, etc., to use violence or coercion or force against me, then we're pretty much on the same team, even where we diverge, right? Like we had an experience today with some people on the street who were like, oh, I don't agree with these flyers that are passing out about vaccine passports. But after a few minutes of conversation, they realized, okay, well maybe we do have more in common than I thought, because even though I believe in vaccines, I think it's wrong for you to be forced to do this. And I said, well, that's all we're saying. So, we might have some time for other discussions and talk about that, but we're on the same page there, right? So, we have more in common than these folks would like us to believe. And the division is, it's really easy to just fall into that trap, but I just want to warn against that. Be careful not to. Again, it doesn't mean you need to give up your opinions and beliefs and just believe with somebody else for the sake of, unity. I'm not saying that. We're all going to have our own opinions and beliefs, but we also can find those common areas that we can support each other, that we can collaborate, we can work on. And if those things, which they typically do, outweigh the things that we disagree on, then why shouldn't we work together, right? Because I don't want to be around a bunch of other zombies who all just think the same and repeat each other. I love diversity of opinion and thought. It helps me grow as a person. So watch out for the division. The defeatist trap. So I've noticed that sometimes activists will fall into, especially it seems like maybe in the early years, you ever had the experience where you start waking up, right, and you're freaking out a little bit, and you start telling everybody you can think of, and you annoy all of them, and then you get like one or two friends that maybe listen to you, like, okay, yeah, you're kind of crazy, but I'm with you, we'll still talk. They're sort of with you a little bit. So if you go into that experience, I've written about it much like a grieving experience, right? Because I think it's essentially that you're waking up and you realize, like, wow, I've been lied to about a whole lot of things. Like, that's a painful thing. Even if we don't consciously stop to feel it, I think that's what many of us experience. And so the grieving process, there's some psychology behind it, and they describe 7 different stages that people sometimes pass through. Doesn't mean everybody's going to pass through all 7 stages or in a particular order, but people typically, they get angry, denial, these kinds of things, and then acceptance. I think sometimes that's what happens is people, they wake up, they figure out what's going on, and they get really angry. Or they get so consumed by the fear that they just get hopeless. They think there's like nothing to do. They fall into defeatism. So this person, whatever solutions you present, hey, we want to go out and talk to businesses about building a directory. Oh, nobody's going to listen anyways. Nobody's going to do that. Or this solution, oh, that's controlled opposition. Oh, they infiltrated that. Oh, they created that. There's no reason to do anything. You guys know this person? You've met this person before? Don't be this person. There are solutions. We are absolutely facing some difficult circumstances, clearly. We're having this conversation because we're all like, yeah, we need to figure out what we're going to do. But to simply just accept that there's nothing to do. I mean, I don't know what this person's solution is, just to stay home and post memes on Facebook and argue with people or whatever until things get worse. But I refuse to accept that, right? I think most of you are here because you refuse to accept that. But it can be difficult. It can be overwhelming. There can be times where even the best of us, including myself, like, wow, we're fucked. Excuse my language. But there are solutions. There are solutions. So watch out for defeatism, watch out for division. And normalcy bias is another one I've been warning against. Normalcy bias is, let's see if I can remember the definition. Here, let's pull it up. It's a cognitive bias which leads people to disbelieve or minimize threat warnings. Consequently, individuals underestimate the likelihood of a disaster when it might affect them and its potential adverse effects. Normalcy bias causes many people to not adequately prepare for natural disasters. So, I believe what we're facing is a disaster of sorts. And last year, when things started happening, Miriam and I had a lot of people reaching out who were interested in moving to Mexico, or hey, what's it like in Texas? Or people started making their moves, figuring out where they want to move. As I'm sure some of you know, a lot of people have left California to go other places, and they're looking for elsewhere. People are like figuring out, where am I going to put my roots? Especially if they throw up a wall and I can't go through it anymore because I don't want to get a vaccine. You want to think about where do you want to be, right? So there was all this movement, there was this excitement. Also, for me, it's been a huge motivator. It was just accelerated the things I already wanted to do and said, okay, forget waiting 5 years, like, let's do it now. Like, this is the time. Let's get off grid, let's grow our food, let's build a community, all these kinds of things. And I could see this excitement, some of it was reaction, of course, but people were really, there was momentum. And I think there still is to some degree, but it seems like in some places, especially I would say like Texas and Arizona, where they're feeling pretty chill right now. They've got like a situation where the state, Texas, they just banned vaccine passports. They've got people are feeling like, oh, it doesn't even affect us. That doesn't mean you should just assume it's going away. And again, this is not just going to go away. These people are not just going to let you go back to normal. They're already talking about a move variant now. And I tend to think of it like this week on America, the move variant is back. Like it's like a season. Like I don't know, it's weird. It's like every week there's a new thing. Pay attention to this. Be afraid or distracted by this thing. ISIS is back. Like, whatever is convenient for them to sell their story. So I think that we really just have to think about that, right? We have to think about how, if we allow it to, things that are happening right now can start to feel normal, right? Remember last year, they put the meme in your head the new normal, the new normal. They put it in print, they put it everywhere. This is what they want you to accept, the new normal. But can we all agree that it should never be normal to see masks on kids? That should never be something that we just accept? And a lot of these things, people not being able to go to the grocery store without showing vaccination status, that shouldn't be normal. So I feel like there are folks who last year were super pumped and excited and concerned about what's happening, now feel like, okay, well things are kind of settling down or whatever. Because again, I mean, I've noticed this as we're traveling, I'm not plugged into the news like I am every day doing my work. I'm like, honestly, other than seeing some masks on people, I wouldn't even notice anything's going on. We're traveling across the country, been through 7 states so far, and for the most part, other than sometimes seeing people wearing masks, you know, we walk right into a business either way. We're like, if they're going to say something, they'll say something. We're just going to walk in. But other than, yeah, seeing other people with masks, I don't know. I'm not in a hospital, so I'm not trying to say nothing's happening. That's not my position. But life is pretty normal if you are not sucked into their vision of things. For other people, they're living very traumatized, scared, kind of end of the world, which I feel bad. I mean, I try to imagine that. Dang, that's got to be a very difficult last year. Most I worry about, though, the kids of those people. If your parents like in freak out mode, just what those kids are doing. I mean, yeah, it's definitely some traumatic stuff. So my point here is that I want to warn against starting to fall into this feeling that it's like things are just normal, right? Normalcy bias is the kind of thing that during the totalitarian regimes, whether it's Nazi, communist, fascist, whatever, do you think that people just stopped living their lives? No, I'm sure they had birthday parties, and they smiled and they laughed, and they lived their life, even though they knew things were pretty messed up. And even if they're just like, how the hell did we get here? You know, you get to the point where it's not safe to speak out. So you just got to keep going through the motions. And after a while, your brain will seek that balance and that equilibrium, and things will feel normal. I had it happen to me even when I was in prison, where I was just, you know, it's like you try to hang on, like, I don't want to accept that I'm here, but you have to. It's like you don't want time to take forever. And I'd be hanging out with people, I met some friends that were good people, and we start laughing and we're playing around, and I'm just like, whoa, I'm in jail, what the hell is going on? You know, it was just weird where I had like a human, fun moment for a minute, and I'm like, wait, I'm in prison, this is weird. I don't want to have a good time in here, but you have to. That's just, we're going to be human, right? So our beautiful brains can slip us into this normalcy bias where things start to feel normal. Just look out for that, right? Do not allow any of this insanity to become normal to us, right? We've got to remember, keep the memory of freedom alive and what was, right? I think a lot about my nieces and nephews. I have 6 nieces and nephews, and the 2 youngest ones, one of my brothers and one of my sisters, are going to be too young to remember anything before people wore masks everywhere they go. And if we, collectively, and me and my family, don't build and don't help make sure that they have an alternative to this technocratic insanity where the kids, you know, I asked my other niece, because she's in school right now, you know, oh, we can't, Uncle Derrick, we can't go within 6 feet of our friends, and then during recess, we can't even play together, and we got, you know, just this insanity, right? She remembers hanging out with friends before that. She's old enough to, but the youngest 2, they're not going to have any memory of that unless we help make sure that that stays alive, right? So we can't allow this stuff to become normal. So those are just a couple of things to look out for: normalcy bias, division, and the defeatist trap. Now we're going to focus on what we can do about these situations. I know we understand COVID-1984, technocracy, Great Reset, Agenda 2030. They got a lot of fun names for it, don't they? They used to call it the New World Order, which is kind of like a loaded term. I feel like people, whatever images come out of people's minds when they think about it, but increasingly, that's what it looks like, you know, one way or the other. So what can we do about it? We can...
It's just a conspiracy theory.
It is just a conspiracy theory. You guys are all conspiracy nuts, by the way. Thanks for being here. Peace. So what we're going to focus on is how to opt out of the technocratic state, my book. The solutions that I'm going to focus on tonight, they're action-oriented, they're generational. We were kind of touching on that already. That I believe true lasting change, it has to be generational, right? So I don't want to call out anybody's age, but do we have anybody in the 70s in the room? 60s? Cool. And we have, I see a couple of young ones that were around there. Somewhere in the under 5 realm, young, in that realm. So we have a good range, right, of kids and adults, and in the past few nights, at one of the stops we had somebody that was in their 80s, late 80s, and a kid 2 months old, right? Just think about the potential just between the generations, like in this room and all the different cities we've been traveling. I keep asking this question just to kind of illustrate the point of the potential that's here, right? I've learned a lot to take inspiration from my grandmother. She's in her late 80s. She's got a farm in Kentucky. She's been awake to all this stuff since before I was born. And when I came to her and said, "Grandma, have you heard of all this crazy stuff?" She kind of patted me on the head and was like, "Welcome to the club," you know. She's just been very encouraging to me, just telling me, "Keep going, just keep going," you know. And I love knowing that for her, we're going to see her in a few weeks as well on tour. I love knowing for her that as she, you know, enters the twilight of her life, she's still very strong and out there in the garden as often as she can, but that she sees that there's a whole other generation of people that are going to keep this struggle, this fight, whatever you want to call it, alive, you know. And I love knowing that the seeds that I planted to friends of mine that are younger, my younger brother and others, that those things are going to fruit and continue to grow, right? I have full faith that what we are doing here will turn into something beautiful, and I already see it coming to fruition in many places around the world, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. So these solutions are not quick, they're not political, they're not legal jargon, they're not lawsuits, and that's not to say you shouldn't pursue those methods if they suit you. I think we should fight every way we can at this point, you know. But sometimes we need to ask ourselves, is it worth expending this amount of money, time, energy into this effort that might not get anywhere? Or should I focus on growing food for my family? Should I focus on building community and getting out of these systems, right? And think about, you know, I think we're in somewhat of a time-sensitive situation here. I don't know that we have the rest of our lives to prepare for this. I think we have, I don't know, I don't want to make predictions or anything like that. I just think that the sooner we get focused on how we can empower our communities and our families and not be dependent on external systems, be they government, corporations, etc., banks, the better off we'll be as they try to squeeze, you know, because again, even before the social credit score, the squeeze is on. Right now it's like jobs, people are losing their jobs, right? They just mandated if you've got more than 100 employees around the country, you're supposed to start, you know, telling them they need to get vaccinated or get out. The squeeze is coming. And if you've got a social security check that you're dependent on, or a 401k, or just a welfare thing, or even I think the banks could find ways to do it. I've already seen some examples of landlords requiring their tenants to show proof of vaccine. So I mean, they will find every way to squeeze it. And if we are dependent on these systems, which most of us are, because they've created this world and we're told this is how you do things. You know, they create this whole vision for us, and it's like, you can do anything you want in this board game. You can protest, you can fight, you can be violent, you can run for office, but don't consider looking outside of what we've created here for you, right? Everything else there is acceptable, because they know how to handle violence, they know how to handle politics, and they know how to handle these kinds of things. What they can't handle is us getting up and walking away and saying, we're going to focus on building something else. So the solutions are not quick. I'm not here tonight to tell you, here's the 1, 2, 3 things you do and everything's going to go back to normal. We can all go home and rest and everything will be chill. Unfortunately, that's not what we got. That's not the situation we're in. We have some work to do. And as I said at the beginning of this talk, it might involve lifestyle changes. It could involve relationship changes. You know, some people are unfortunately realizing people that they're married to. And so I've had this heard from some friends, you know, who are like, their marriages or relationships are really struggling right now because one partner came down on the other side of the argument. You know, maybe they thought that they really kind of knew each other maybe beforehand, and now this issue comes up with COVID and with vaccines, and it's like, wait, do you think that's right? Do you think that's okay? So people are really having to decide certain things. Also, our relationships with different institutions, which open us up to vulnerabilities to these systems. We're going to talk about that. But I just want to make that clear. The things that I'm proposing here, they're action-oriented. They do involve getting up off your butt, and they do involve working for the future generations, you know, because I believe that we're fighting for the young ones that are here, as well as fighting for the oldest among us, and for the ones that we're never going to meet, they're going to come after us. I also know that our ancestors, the previous generations, they did a lot of work to make sure that we'd be here. You know, whatever part of the planet you come from, part of the country, if our ancestors didn't think ahead and weren't proactive, we wouldn't be here. Right? We're going to talk about that a little bit. Actually, let's focus on that for a second. This idea that prepping, what does prepping even mean, right? What's that word, preparing, right? I mean, that's what it's really. But prepping is now like, you're a doomsday prepper. It's like seen as like, you know, you tell somebody, oh, I'm a prepper. It's like, oh, in certain minds, it evokes images of like, oh, you must be a right-wing militia, extremist, blah, blah, whatever, right? But think about that, the demonization of being prepared. What the heck? That's, I mean, to me, when you really think about it, that's the point we're at now, that you are being told or conditioned to believe that somebody who takes time to be prepared. And look, you don't have to be preparing for the zombie apocalypse. In Houston, we get hurricanes, right? You just need to be prepared for hurricane season because it's going to happen. It's going to come. There's going to be big storms. It's going to be flood, right? And this past winter in Texas, we were down in Mexico, but a lot of our friends and families they had to deal with like this freak winter storm, right? And the power grid goes down, and everybody who's dependent on the power grid has got a reality check. Oh, damn, yeah, I need to focus on how not to be dependent on these people. And people who probably had solar or generators or other alternatives, they were probably chilling. They're like, yeah, this is why we don't depend on those people. It was a lesson for a lot of people, right? Just how not to be dependent on these different systems. So, thinking ahead and preparing for whether it's the winter, it's preparing for whatever, because all parts of the country get weird weather, whether you're dealing with fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, everybody's got their thing that they deal with, and that it's good to be somewhat prepared for, right? I learned this from my grandmother, who every week, every couple days, she's going out to the garden to harvest. She takes it down to her cellar. She cans and takes it down to her cellar where they've been storing food, and they continue to store food. If she doesn't take time to bale the hay, then the cows aren't going to have anything to eat when winter comes and all the grass is dead. It's just these little things that if those things weren't happening, then life ceases, right? And if our ancestors that came before us didn't go through the struggles they did to get us here, then we wouldn't be here, right? And in that same way, the people that are coming after us are 100% dependent on what we do today. And I don't say that in any kind of like abstract way. Just think about it in the most realistic terms you can. The people coming after us, the unborn right now, are depending on us to make sure that this doesn't happen, that there is an alternative, that there is some semblance of freedom and truth and justice out there. Because if not, it seems people are going to continue to have babies one way or the other. So there's going to be babies born into a world that I don't think most of us would consider a free world. And I don't want to bring kids into that world. And I pray for those who are being born into this world at the moment, that we can do something to avert that, right? So I just think that's important. And yeah, just understanding that, thinking ahead, planning, it's not this nefarious, crazy thing. They want you to believe that. They also want you to believe that just being a free person is illegal, right? I'm going to emphasize that in this coming near term, I'll still focus on this next 5 to 10 years, near-term future, you might have to be in a position where you have to break the law to stay free, to maintain privacy and maintain liberty. Now, I'm not sitting here encouraging anybody to go out and harm anybody or really anything particularly. All I'm saying is that at the moment, the world is increasingly making it illegal just to be a free person. Just to say, like, hey, I want my own privacy about my health, or, I don't want to give up information about my body to go into this place, or to do, as that cage gets smaller and smaller and they continue to squeeze people, are you just going to stop living? I mean, most people, it's typically the kind of natural reaction. You find a workaround, right? And then the next thing you know, it's like, oh, now you're an outlaw, right? So welcome to the club. But it's not because you're a bad person, it's because being free is increasingly being demonized and is being made illegal, right? So just your very existence by nature will make things illegal in some circumstances. And one example of this, let me tell you this. So people can't fly freely in a lot of places. In Mexico, where we're at, Mexico is one of about 5, maybe 6 countries that don't require PCR tests to come in, or don't require vaccines or any of that kind of stuff. If you're driving, flying, driving, any of that. But when you leave, like, so say you came to visit down in Mexico, you flew to Mexico, when you wanted to fly back home, when you get to the US, they would expect you to have a PCR test showing that you got the thing stuck up your nose and that you're negative, or if you're positive, then you're expected to go quarantine or whatever. So there are people who haven't seen their family members in a year or more, right? There are people who want to go see their dying, grandmother. There are people who need to travel for work, for whatever reasons. It's honestly none of my business. And these people are like, you know what? I know I'm not going to get the jab. I know I don't want to get that test. So they end up finding themselves purchasing a CDC card, or trading with somebody for a negative PCR test that they Photoshop to make sure they can fly. I heard a rumor that there's some of these things in the Mexico Freedom Cell on Telegram. It's just a rumor at this point, though. Hypothetically. But my point here is that people are going to do what they need to do to continue living. I'm not sitting here saying that that's the best strategy. I think using those sort of false documents is at best a temporary solution, because as things get further digitized, it's not going to be that easy. And in fact, they're using people doing that as an excuse to why we need it to be digitized. So, but again, I know that, look, I'm not going to judge somebody for like, man, I haven't seen family in a year, I need to do this, and they use it and they are able to fly home and they're not bothered, they're not harassed, because I don't see a victim there. It's just 2 people saying, hey, I got a test, here you go, you need a test, here, edit it, do this thing, go see your family, have a good time, go home. But of course, they see that as dangerous and, you know, extremist because, well, you're going to get somebody sick with COVID or you're violating the system or whatever it may be, right? So just doing that, just wanting to go visit family, going to want to see grandma. You know, I had a friend back in Houston who his grandmother died last year, not related to COVID. She's an older lady, she passed away, and he couldn't go to her funeral because he could have, he chose to, right? That's what they say. So you have a choice. But if you're being coerced, there really is no choice. You know, it's like, hey, do this or you suffer this, right? It's a choice. That's what abusers want you to believe. Basically, they told him, you can fly to go see grandma's funeral, which is in Michigan, and at that time, you guys may remember, they were saying it was like the hot spot of the country, and it was, you know, big things going on there. So if he was to go fly to go see grandma's funeral, when he flew back to Texas, even they were doing this in Texas for a while, they basically were going to say, well, since you flew from a hot spot, we're now going to be doing random house checks for 2 weeks to make sure that you're quarantined. So, you know, DPS officers could just randomly show up at the house, and that was something that he personally didn't want. You know, I was like, I don't think I'm okay with that. I don't want people just randomly showing up, and he didn't want to quarantine or whatever. And so, unfortunately, he missed his grandmother's funeral. And I know plenty of other people who felt like they had to make those decisions, those choices. My point is that this system it's naturally, people are becoming, you know, illegal. They're doing illegal things just by trying to continue living their lives, right? And to me, the answer then is, if this system, these interlocking systems, various systems we could point to and describe, are saying that you are not accepted as you are. We need you to go get this thing. It's just it's one thing right now. Then it's the booster. Then it's whatever. It's a precedent that can be anything at any point in the future. You jump to the hoop once, they're going to want you to do it whenever they say. So if that system is increasingly making it illegal just to be a free person, then to me, again, the answer is to not go beg that system to accept us back or spend our lifetimes trying to vote in people that we hope won't be corrupt or that won't get corrupted along the way to fix it. The answer is to focus our energy on something else outside of that system. And this is where the strategies that I focus on are, that we're going to present 3 different paths that you can take in this process. The first one is what I call holding down the fort. And this might be somebody, we'll see if this is you. Holding down the fort is for somebody who feels like their current position, their current place, their current location is the most ideal place. You got a good community, you got resources, maybe you got some land, or you're growing food with other people. Or you feel like, you know what, we have problems in this city, but we're doing good, we're turning things around, like I'm staying here, I'm committed, right? So somebody who, for one reason or another, whether by choice or just having no other option, chooses to hold down the fort. I'm committed to where, and that doesn't necessarily have to be your hometown, it could be just wherever you found yourself, right? Some people move all the time, and they end up in a new place, and it's like, this feels like home, we have a lot of community, a lot of good things happening here, I'm staying here. So you commit yourself to getting involved in local activism and trying to spread the word and make sure that you're keeping that alive and making sure it doesn't get any worse, right? So that's holding down the fort. You're saying, I'm going to commit to this place, I'm going to work with other activists, work with other people, we're going to do what we can to make sure that our community stays free. And that will make sense for a lot of people. As I said earlier, it seems like a lot of people in California are not taking that strategy. They're choosing to take the next strategy, which is what I call exit and build. And what I'm focused on tonight is exit and build in a number of different ways. Exit and build is sort of a 2-pronged strategy because it does deal with location, as hold down the fort does, and it also deals with some principles. So when we're talking about exiting and building, as far as location goes, if you decide, well, this community, whatever community, it's not ideal, there's just nobody, people will email me sometimes like, man, there's nobody in my town, do you know anybody out here, can you help me find a freedom cell or a group, because I'm literally the only person. Sometimes we feel that way, and we just haven't met the other people, right? You gotta go out and do events, and you're like, oh my God, there's more of us. Like, I didn't realize, I thought I was the only one. But sometimes you might be in a place where literally you are the only one, and yeah, there's parts of the country that seem to be more kind of bought into the narrative than other places, right? So in those situations, you might decide to vote with your feet and move, and say, like, look, the town over, or the state over, or the country over, or whatever, wherever you find, is more valuable to you, sounds more like it's more fitting to my needs. Also, sometimes you might be in a place where you're the only one, or it's just a couple of you, and you got to build it. And I love building things. I love starting from the ground up, and but maybe you're like, we don't got time. We don't got years to establish this, and build up from the bottom, and get a dedicated crew of people. Like, I want to go somewhere where there's already an established community, and I can just contribute my skills in the best way I can, right? Depends on where you're at, what your resources are. Again, do you want to move? Maybe you don't have the option to. So holding down the fort and exiting the building. Exiting the building again, as you're looking over the grass on the other side of the fence, you're like, man, looks pretty free in Texas or Arizona or wherever else. I keep hearing about all this good stuff. I want to go check it out. I'm not here to tell you to move to Texas or Arizona. You do what's best for you. There's a lot of beautiful parts of this country. Ultimately, wherever we end up, it's still going to come down to the same thing that at some point we got to stand up. It's something we can all keep trying to move and do this thing, and at some point we got to say that this is it. This is where I'm going to make my stand. Doesn't mean physically. Doesn't mean it's not a call to violence. I feel like with everything going on in the world, I have to keep saying that it's not a call to violence. Not a call to violence, because people want to believe that's what we're talking about, right? What I'm talking about is saying, I'm a free human here asserting my rights, and you are not going to do this. I'm not going to accept that. No, you're not going to take my child. No, you're not going to come in our community. Can everybody say no with me? No. 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 Say it a couple times. I think it's important. It might sound silly, but people need to get comfortable with saying no. Sometimes we're afraid to just speak up and stand up, in different situations. No. No. Feels good. So, whatever we do, holding down the fort, exiting the building, at some point, you got to find community. I think community is key to it. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the other aspect of exit and build, which I think is equally important, because like I said earlier, you might be in a situation where you feel like, man, I hear you and I know this is the answer, but I'm totally plugged into all these systems and I just have no idea. And this is, again, I hear this from people, like, how can I get out of there? What's the answer? Again, there's no one step. It's a bunch of little steps, and it can be different things. Small different things. Exit and build, though, in addition to moving location, it's about exiting from systems that don't align with your values and your principles, and building and or supporting, making use of alternative systems. We're not all going to be app designers, I'm definitely not, but I want to support those who are building decentralized, open source, encrypted apps, and like, hey guys, there's a new tool we could use for now that seems good, and let's use that instead of Facebook or WhatsApp or whatever else. And you apply that across the board, right? So you think, look, I'm sick of the fact that the banks robbed the people in 2008, and they've been robbing people for 100 plus years, and they use fractional reserve banking to rob us through interest, and they use, we could go on, right? You get to a point where you're sick of that. Maybe you get sick enough where you're like, I'm actually sick of supporting that system by keeping my money in their banks. Because you know what? I still got my money in Chase Bank, and damn it, they took, they robbed people 15 years ago. Oh, I still got money in Bank of America. This is not a judgment or attack on anybody wherever you got your money. This is just, again, for awareness. Each of us as individuals can say, you know what? I can live more in line with my values. If we only talk that we want this better world, and we want to create these things, and we wish these people didn't have so much power and influence and all these things, it's going to continue, right? You got to actually you got to take steps. You got to look into them. Maybe you're interested in some of these ideas, but you haven't really got beyond just the abstract idea that, oh, I like that concept. One day I'll make time to look into it. You haven't even, searched it or, even done any research. So the point is, how do we align our thoughts, our intentions, our words with our actions, right? Because that's the only thing that's going to consistently move the ball down the forward. Anything else is just talk, patting each other on the back, doing stuff because it feels good. And it's kind of past that point. Like, we're past the point where knowing is not enough. Action is very much needed at this point. Action in all kinds of different ways. If everybody that was here today went home, and even if everybody just planted one seed and something came out of that, like, or built one little backyard garden, that would be huge progress. And it might not seem so, but out of that could spring so many other things, right? Maybe you end up like, wow, my little garden's taken off. I got enough now. I can go to the local market and I can sell that, right? And maybe you develop relationships with other people and you let them know, hey, you can buy from me anytime, mask, no mask, vaccinated, unvaxxed. You get on the directory, right? My point is that seeds can sprout and create so much more just from action. None of the stuff that I have a very blessed and amazing gift of a life to travel and talk to people and do these things and feel like I'm fighting for what I believe is true. But none of it would have never happened if I didn't get past my own little hang-ups and things that I still deal with and struggle, right? If I didn't choose to say, you know what, maybe we can spend 2 months away from home and we can go out there and talk to people at this really important time and just connect. Yeah, but it's going to be uncomfortable. It's just much easier just to stay here and be in my house and chill. And I can just, all the different reasons of why not to do things, right? But every time I've taken that step, every time I've gone out to the streets, something comes out of that, something new. It might be a small thing, but it leads to something else, right? So we have to start by taking steps, taking concrete steps, Is anybody familiar with the Greater Reset, the response we put out in response to the Great Reset? If you haven't seen the Greater Reset, I encourage you to check it out at thegreaterreset.org. It's a completely free event. It'll be happening again in January. And it's not just a talking event where we're just going to talk about problems. It's like this. It's focused on solutions. How can we think of solutions in the areas of our food, in our health, mental, physical, spiritual health, in the education, and with the children, the parenting, all these different areas that the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, their agenda, they want to take all those areas in a really scary, dark, technocratic place. Well, we thought, instead of just sitting around and obsessing with what they're doing and I guess waiting for it to happen, why don't we think of how would we reset things? How would we remake things, right? And how are we? Exactly, we are. Thank you, sister. Because we are doing it. And it's been, and that, my point with bringing that up is it is happening. And it's such a humbling experience to see people reach out from as far as Turkey, India, Australia, and say, thank you guys for what you're doing. We just met these people through the Freedom Cell Network, and now we're buying land together. Oh, we all pulled our kids out of school, now we're doing a homeschooling cause. We pulled our money out of the bank, saying real things. People are taking concrete, real actions, and that's what I really want to encourage you guys to think about. So when you're exiting the building, I think I listed a few here. You can think of like the food system, the education system, the medical system, the political system, technology. We're going to talk more about those in just a second. How you can first become aware, okay, when it comes to the financial system, I do have a bank and I have a lot of money in there, and if it doesn't feel good with me, I'd like to change that. Okay, let me start looking into credit unions, let me start thinking, what other alternatives out there? Where could I put my money? Maybe I can buy some land with it, because land's a better investment than just let the bank sit with it and do whatever they want with it. Just having that conversation, because it's all about awareness. If we don't stop to think, then we just keep going through the motions every day, and we're just going to keep doing the same things. Most of us just repeat the things we were taught by our parents, and if our parents were, for better or worse, acting from faulty information, we're just repeating those same patterns, right? So part of being awake, whatever you want to call it, is questioning these things and questioning the ways that we've been doing things. So holding down the fort, exiting the building. The other path is what I call apathy is death. Because truly doing nothing, I believe, will result in that. And I don't mean like, again, you do nothing, they're going to storm down your house or whatever and take you away to FEMA camp. I don't know, maybe, but that's not what I'm warning about. Even on the spiritual, psychological level, I believe doing nothing, ultimately at that level, will result in that. Would it not be the death of the soul and spirit to sit by passively and allow what's happening and do nothing? For me, it would, to just sit here and know all these things, to see what's happening, and to not try to help my brother and sister see what's happening, to not try to figure out how I can survive and thrive through it, to not make sure that my family, my friends, and anybody who wants to listen, ultimately they have to make their choices, because that's what freedom is, right? But letting them know, guys, I'm really concerned with what's going on. I have these options, I have these ideas, maybe I can work with you, let me help you get the kids out of the homeschooling, start homeschooling, get them out of the system. How can I help you? How can I support you? Because I care about you. But they still got to walk through the door, they still got to make the choice on their own, right? I've been trying to get my family to get passports just so they have that option in case they decide, things are too hot, I want to kind of get elsewhere. It's got my mom so far, got my little brother, but again, they have to take themselves to go do it, right? And that'll show how much they value this, how much they really think it's important. We make time for the things we care about. And if you care about the future, you care about the world that the kids are going to be living in, then we need to make time for it. We need to make time in thinking about how we're embracing some of these systems that are going to work against us. So doing nothing, simply just saying again, I'm going to be defeatist, there's nothing I can do, it's all over, they controlled everything, or it's too late, whatever any kind of doubts that could come up, doing nothing will get us nowhere. And it's just that simple. And it sounds like, well, no duh, we do nothing, nothing's going to happen. But sometimes I feel like we need that gentle reminder of hey, I can have the vision of, dang, I hope the world gets better. I wish it would. But our prayers and our thoughts and our mind are strong, but it also takes physical action. It takes stepping up and okay, I see this vision. I know what I want. I'm going to create it. And I'm going to put everything I got to make it become a reality. I'm going to work with other people to help their realities come to fruition, right? So, don't choose apathy. None of you have chosen apathy, obviously, by being here. One of the next concepts that I want to talk about is called the freedom formula. I'm going to start to wrap up in just a couple minutes, guys. Thank you so much for your time. You still with me?
Yes.
Thank you. So the freedom formula is also from the book, and it's very simple. It's just something I came up with. This part of the equation is your vision of freedom. So feel free to shout out loud. What do you think of when you hear the word freedom?
Movement.
Movement?
Choice.
Choice? Do what I want. So these are different kind of
It's a
feelings.
relationship with God, ultimately.
I like that.
That God is your rule maker versus other humans.
Yeah, taking it from the divine.
What about the BCCRSS? That would bypass everything if we disarm ourselves with paperwork. And what it does is it lets them know that we know that they know that there's universal law
Sure.
and we claim our sovereignty.
I think there's definitely a lot of different ways to claim sovereignty and to claim that freedom. And for me, one of the first ways is to understand what that means to you, right? So people throw out a couple phrases: movement, choice, connection with God. I want to encourage you to go even deeper and to think about what does that vision really look like, right? Because we can understand, like, hey, here's their vision, the Great Reset. You all nothing, be happy. Like, that's not what most of us want, I think, right? And we have this sort of vague vision, like, yeah, we all want freedom or we want choice and these kinds of things, but it's going to still look different for each of us, and that's okay. I mean, again, we could just find that foundational common ground. We can all create our visions of freedom. But I want you to stop and just really think about that. And I want to tell you what my freedom looks like, what my vision is. It's called the Conscious Agora, and we're going to have 20 acres, 20 plus acres maybe. There's spring water flowing. There's fruit trees all over the place: bananas, avocados, apples, pears, limes. They're already producing right now. There's going to be a food forest growing, free-range kids running around, healthy relationships with other people. We're not trying to create a utopia, but we're going to recognize that, hey, we can work together. We can be adults. We can have emotional intelligence and emotional maturity to communicate as adult people, get to understand ourselves, get to understand each other, and be an example to other people. That's the vision that I hold in my heart and that we are working towards, and hopefully we'll be creating in the coming months. Because I've thought about this for years, and I've written books on it and talked about it because I wanted to understand. I need to see it. For me, when I manifest, when I bring something to existence, I need to be able to see it, smell it, taste it, and know it like that deeply, right? So I want to encourage you to really think about that, right? Because that's the first part of the formula. What is your vision of freedom? What is your goal? What are you aiming for, right? For some people, it's like, yeah, we're going to do the off-grid thing, go get a farm, have a ranch, different visions, right? But you kind of have a general idea of what you're aiming for. Get to know it better. Get to really understand what you're aiming for. The better you do, the more likely I believe you can attain it. The second part of the equation, your vision of freedom, plus what are you willing to do to get it? So I talk a lot about the consistency between thoughts, words, and actions, consistency in living in line with our principles and in line with our actions, right? So we can believe that we're generally good people, right, and have, I think I'm a good person, I don't want to harm people, I'm not trying to screw anybody over, but maybe in the way that we actually live our lives, doesn't mean you're not a good person, but some of the habits you have, like maybe through your job, you're actually supporting things that go against your beliefs, right? Or you're hanging out with, you have relationships with certain people that you accept for one reason or another that actually very much go against what you believe. Or you bank with people that are working against your interest. Or you're out there marching against Monsanto, but then you're buying all the products that come from those companies, right? Just some brief examples of how we work against ourselves sometimes, right? So to understand what your vision is, that's the important part. The next step is like you have to see what are you willing to do to get that. For me, I'm committing my whole life, like my being to this, trying to create a better world, trying to work with people like yourself, and I wake up every day dedicated to this, doing whatever that means, different projects, ideas, just all focused on building these, building, growing, creating, how can we support each other. And so I've committed myself to that. And as a result, the other side of the equation, my actual experience of freedom, looks very much like what my vision is, right? Does that make sense? I have the vision, and I'm also doing everything I can to make sure that vision comes to fruition. Because you might have the vision of, yeah, we're going to have the ranch, and we're going to have some cattle, or we're going to do, whatever your particular vision is. You want to build a permaculture paradise, you want to homeschool, unschool the kids, world school, whatever, travel, lots of big aspirations. But then, in your day-to-day actions, you actually haven't looked up what permaculture actually means. You kind of know it abstractly, and you're interested in getting out of the banking system, but you still haven't looked at the local credit union, and you're open to the idea of crypto or alternative paper currency or whatever, but you haven't taken the time to research it. These things aren't just going to happen on their own, right? So you can have all the hopes and the dreams and everything, but until you're willing and ready to put some concrete action in that, say, you know what, this isn't my field of expertise, I feel lost, I don't know anything about this. But don't just give up. Find somebody in the community who might be better informed, might have other resources for you, right? Make some freaking effort to make sure that the things you want can come into being. So that's what the freedom formula is. Holding your vision, understanding what does freedom mean to you, knowing what you're willing to do to get it, and that will equal your actual experience of freedom. So those two things need to be as closely aligned as possible for you to achieve your goal, because if there's disconnect, you won't achieve your goal. And what I'm describing here is about building community. Have you guys heard of the Freedom Cell Network or Freedom Cells yet? For those who haven't, I encourage you to check out freedomcells.org. This is another project that I helped co-found, which we're the ones who launched the Greater Reset activation. The goal of this concept is to organize in a local, decentralized way, where there's not one leader, one ruler, or one person that the whole group's dependent on, but instead that the knowledge, the power in the group is diffused, it's distributed. Doesn't mean you won't have natural leaders and people who step up and take some initiative, but the idea being that everybody's on equal footing. And so, one way that freedom cells, well, here's a few ways that freedom cells can be applied. Let's say you've got 2 or 3 friends, and you don't have to wait till you have 8 people. We talk about the number 8 because there's some good research into group dynamics and spiral dynamics, and just that number, it has a strong connotation to it. Some of you might be familiar with it. So we focus on groups of 8. But if you got 2 people, start with your 2 friends, right? It's supposed to be your support structure. These are 7 other people that you can count on, that you know will be there for you. So maybe you realize, you 3 get together and you say, what are we interested in? What do we want to focus on? Okay, we want to focus on our mental health. We want to focus on, taking care of growing some food, whatever. You get those basic interests and understandings, and as a group, you start learning about that. Maybe you also decide food security is important. So you want to make sure that, hey, our group's going to have at least 1 month of backup supply of food in case we get the hurricane, the tornado, the zombie apocalypse, whatever. You're prepared either way. So there's a sense of accountability where you guys encourage each other. Maybe you'll all go buy big bags and you show each other storage. Show me what you've been buying. Okay, we're storing rice, we're storing canned goods, just collectively as a group doing that. Maybe you also want to make sure, we're tired of using Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. We want to use some real encrypted alternative communication. Let's research that together. And let's communicate on these in private channels. Not because you're doing anything illegal, but because if you don't practice privacy, it'll be taken away from you. Privacy is not the norm. That's the thing, is most of the apps and the things that are on our phones that are super convenient, they are not privacy-based, they are not meant to be private. The normal kind of default setting is taking all your data and sharing it with whoever that you agreed to when you signed up for it without thinking about it, right? So you have to go out of your way to avoid these systems, right? So the whole goal here then is with Freedom Cells is how do we, as a group, let's say, get some encrypted communication. Let's get some backup supply of food. Let's start learning how to grow food together. Maybe you guys watch a permaculture documentary together and talk about it, or we all take a permaculture course together. Maybe your group wants to learn healthier communication skills, so you all take nonviolent communication training. Have an afternoon where all of y'all learn about that. What does that look like? How do we make sure we communicate in a healthy way, that we're hearing each other and we're meeting each other's needs, and just building that sort of activist family. So as you're doing this, your freedom cell starts to grow. You end up with 8 people. You end up with 15 people. Before you know it, you got 2 freedom cells, right? So you have 15, 16 people. What we would then encourage is you split off into 2 groups. At that point, maybe you realize, hey, we got 16 people spread across town. Well, some of us are on the west side of town. We're closer to each other. And some of us are over here on the north side of town. So we're going to have the North Houston Freedom Cell and the West Houston Freedom Cell. And those cells and groups, you can call it whatever. We've had people call them hives, hubs, circles. The name is irrelevant, it's the concept. So this group, they meet on a regular weekly basis because they're closer to each other and they're working on their skills. And this group also meets on a weekly basis. And then once a month, they have a regional gathering where all the local cells come together and like, hey, what have you guys been working on? Tell us about the projects you're doing. Maybe make it a big counter economy, the Agora, this marketplace. We saw it last night, for example, at our stop out there. They had local vendors where everybody brought their goods, whether that was stuff from their farm or oils they make, cookies or whatever, clothes. And you're starting to build a local economy, right? Because as we're seeing, some of these businesses aren't going to let you come into their place very soon. They might not already if you're not wearing masks. Thankfully, the initiatives that Melissa and others are starting, you'll soon have a directory where you know, hey, I can go support and patronize these businesses knowing that they're not going to discriminate against me. And that's really powerful. But if it ever came to those places weren't available, or even if they are still available, you want to support each other as well, right? And make sure that we're all thriving through this. So Freedom Cells is just, you have that infrastructure, we encourage people to build your first group of 8, work towards that. If you continue to grow, start to build separate groups, but those groups can come together for larger projects, right? Because 7 or 8 people, well, for example, we were in Sebastopol the other day at this big urban farm. I think we had 20 people, and we had this huge garden beds, probably as long as this room. There was about 5 or 6 rows, and we got all that work done in like less than an hour with a group of about 15 people. You know, there's so much we can do as a community, as opposed to just one person trying to, like, you know, one of the other myths that we're told is this whole lone wolf myth. It's like I'm a very strong, proud individualist, love my privacy, my space, and all these things, but I recognize I can't do this alone. I need you guys, and you need each other. We all need each other, you know, because whether or not I'm going to live here with you, I'm going to live elsewhere, you have ideas that maybe I can adapt to my community. Maybe I have ideas that might work for you, right? And at the very least, I love seeing you succeed because it encourages me to keep going. It's like, yes, they're fighting hard out there in Modesto. Now I can go on to the next place, and we're all going to keep building and doing what we can, right? So Freedom Cells is about establishing that support network. And again, the idea is that you know that you have 7 other people that are equally prepared for you. It doesn't just have to be preparedness, it can be education. Some families form Freedom Cells and they exclusively focusing on homeschooling the kids or peaceful parenting, these kinds of concepts. Some people do a little bit of everything, right? Others are just exclusively, we're just a food permaculture, just focused on that, right? The point is though, I've been promoting this idea since 2015, 2016, and now through the website, freedomcells.org. If you haven't joined yet, please do join freedomcells.org. You can sign up for free. It's not meant to be a Facebook or anything like that. The only reason it exists is so you can create a profile, put your skills, put your interests, add your location. Don't put your home address, but put something, you know, nearby you. And then you can go to the member map and the cell map and search, find people 5, 10, 15, and 20 miles near you, and find other people who are equally interested in action. You know, I would start with people in this room, of course, because you guys are here, but definitely there might be other people that are already in this community that didn't hear about tonight's event, that are out there looking to grow food, looking to connect. Now, the goal, of course, is use the maps, the member maps, the cell maps to find pre-existing groups and other individuals, message them, and meet in the real world. Leave the website behind after that, right? Because the whole goal is real world organizing, not just another place that we argue and debate and talk, whatever. There's plenty of those places if we want to do those things. Now, for us, at least, the time is to focus on action. So, the Freedom Cell Network was at 3,000 people before COVID, and when COVID 1984 hit, we're now at 25,000 people plus all around the world. Like, it's grown just rapidly, exponentially. And as I said earlier, people are telling us we're buying land with people we've met through the Freedom Cell Network. People are starting to use it as like a travel network. When we were just coming back from Mexico, there was a lady that was caravanning up with us, and we stopped in Houston, and she went on her way to Maryland. And she used the Freedom Cell Network to find local, you know, like-minded people to stay with in Tennessee and North Carolina, like on her way, just by using the cells on the website. If you're on Telegram, we also have a whole lot of Freedom Cells there. At this point, we have no idea how many there are. They're in Portugal and Spain, they're across Europe, parts of Africa, India, Australia. It's growing in Mexico as well. It's just been, and there's other groups, not just us as well, who are doing this. But I think the point is, many of us are feeling like it's a time for us to organize, like locally, to come together. And I think in these small kind of groups, we can get a lot done, but we can also collaborate in bigger ways, right? We come together for the big things. And that's that community. Because the freedom formula I was describing, your vision, what are you willing to do to get it? Again, we can't do it on our own. I mean, it's very difficult. Like, I think I like to use my family as an example often because I really feel like they're average, good people. Like they're working class people who my brother, my sister's husband, you know, they're working. My brother's working 6 days a week, comes home, see the kids on the weekend, and he's like off to the next job, you know, and doesn't feel like there's a way out. He's just like, I hear you, man, I see what's coming. And he sends me articles of crazy stuff happening. I'm like, okay, so what are we doing? How can I help you? Don't just sit here and watch the train coming at you and your family and do nothing, right? I think Miriam was touching on this earlier. A lot of people feel like, you know, I refuse to just watch it happen, right? So instead, how do we give each other tools? How do we support each other, right? People like my brother and my sister who don't vaccinate their kids and who are still in the public school system, and what I'm trying to help them do right now, they need that support system. They need to connect to the other parents who are already doing this, right? People are starting to form their homeschooling pods as more and more people are pulling the kids out of the school system because of vaccines or just surveillance or just the fact that those places are increasing like prisons. people are finding ways to continue to educate their kids. And we do live in a time, that there are plenty of alternatives. Gotta take time. Might take some money, might take some energy, might take getting to know new parents, again, but how much do you want to make sure your kids have a free world in the future? That's what I'm trying to tell my brother and sister. It's like, yeah, I understand, I know you're stressed out, I know you're overworked, but think about them. Don't just think about what you're feeling right now in this moment. Like, well, if we move the kids to somewhere else, they're just going to hate it. They're going to be, but they will thank you in the future. Trust me. So don't just think about that present discomfort, right? Like, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to go talk to these people. I don't want to pass out this flyer. I don't want to put my feet in the dirt. Yeah, I could go out and learn, just push past those doubts, those fears, and those voices trying to tell you that you shouldn't or can't do this, right? We have so much potential, but it is in that community. And freedom cells, I think, are just one aspect, one part of that. And the last thing I want to mention is that what I've described today, it's known as counter-economics. I'm not going to go really deep in this. It's on my website if you want to look up that phrase, counter-economics, and in the books. But it's an idea that's been around for about 50 years. I have learned about it 10 years ago through the books that talk about it. The philosophy is called agorism. That agora, the Greek word for the marketplace. It was this vision of, again, how do we get there? That beautiful, free place. How do we get there? And the man, Samuel Conkin, who discovered these ideas, much like myself, he said, look, politics isn't going to fix it. Storming the Capitol isn't going to fix it. Violence isn't going to fix it. So what are we left with? Apathy, right? No, that's not going to work for us. So he presented this third way, this middle path, what he called counter-economics. And it's what I just described to you guys this evening. Pulling our money, time, energy, support away from these systems. And he believed, and he kind of described this gradual generational change that I believe we are in the early stages of, that would happen, that as more and more people pulled out of these systems, and as the state continued to get aggressive, which is just the nature of the state, they always continue to encroach on freedoms and encroach. And they use excuses like COVID to expand that power, right? And now many people are realizing, whoa, like this is a real thing, right? And their response is to say, I don't want to deal with that. How do I get away from that, right? We're responding and pulling away. I think it's a natural inclination. And he recognized that as the state would get more and more aggressive and more violent, more and more intrusive, that people would want an alternative, and people would start to pursue an alternative. And so in the 60s and 70s when he was writing this, he was kind of proposing, like, hey, if anybody's listening, we need to start building this new counter-economy, this alternative system out there, these parallel structures. The mainstream economy, he called that the white market. It's basically most of us, right? If you have a job that is taxed, there's a record of it, you're getting a check, all those kinds of things, that's the white market. They're very aware of all that money, right? And that's like trillions and trillions of dollars. He started to imagine, well, what happens if people consciously say, we're not going to spend our money in that economy, we're going to spend it in the local farmers markets, right? Places where generally you're not paying taxes, there's not a license or regulation, you're taking money away from it, whether you realize how powerful that actually is. You're taking money away from these systems by keeping it in your own communities, right? And so he imagined that as more and more people did this, not just with money, but again, mental, physical, spiritual supporting systems, the money system, the financial system, the food system, all these different things. I mean, these things are already crumbling under their own weight, right? This is why they're trying to come save the day and remake things in the Great Reset. They're already in the process of that. What he predicted, though, is instead of just waiting for that to happen, those of us who are conscious of it can pull out and can help other people and start laying the groundwork for whatever's to come next. Again, not a 1, 2, 3, solve the problem kind of solution. It's a generational change. I think it starts with us here, and it goes down to the youngest ones, and goes on, and it will continue on. But if we don't start the work now, and the people who've already started the work, then we're never going to get there, right? I mean, it's just a matter of fact. And so, it's not just a really quick fix. There are different ways to do this, though. When it comes to the food system, the unsustainable, I would say destructive food systems, regardless of whatever your diet is, I think most of us would agree those systems are unsustainable. And even in just the most basic sense, like the fact that most of the U.S. now is not farming, that Bill Gates owns most of the farmland, and that a lot of produce in the U.S., besides coming from California, it's coming from Mexico, where we live, in the state of Michoacan. A lot of the food that's grown there gets shipped up here. But what happened if Mexico one day decides, you know what, it's probably to our benefit to start storing some of this food or keeping it in-house? The U.S. would be hurting in a lot of different ways, right? That's a dependence. And most of us are dependent on the grocery store. We just kind of assume, like, yeah, things will be there all the time, year-round, whenever I expect them to be, right? And more people are recognizing that's not so true. And then when you add the vaccine passport to the equation, people in France are already being denied entry to the supermarket. You know, what happens when that day comes? If you haven't thought ahead, if you don't have a freedom zone, a group of people that are already storing food and growing food, and you connect with the local farmers, and you told them, this is what we did in Mexico. We told the farmers, look, if they try to make you shut down, we'll come meet you at your house and buy food directly from you. Let's exchange info just to make sure that we have that. Starting to build that directory, that network, right? Those alternative systems, that's the foundation we need to lay right now. So the food system, learning, I do recommend learning about permaculture and just alternative ways of growing food, that you can produce food with animals, without animals. The education system. I mentioned homeschooling a couple of times. I'm not here to act as if homeschooling kids is just like the simplest, easiest thing in the world to do. Again, I have my brother and sister, I see that, like they're working all the time. They're just like, how are we gonna homeschool 3 kids, you know? But as a community, we can do it, right? And I definitely have resources for anybody who's interested in that. We've connected with a lot of different folks in the world schooling, homeschooling, unschooling movement who love to help parents who need those resources kind of make that transition. That's another way to exit. The financial system. I mentioned the banking system. Again, you do what you do as a free, beautiful person, but I believe if we actually want to create freedom, we need to live in line with our values, and I can't see how these banks are continuing to serve our agendas, and in most cases, a lot of these big banks are part of the Great Reset agenda. So think about that. If you go to the World Economic Forum website, just search your bank, and I guarantee you they have a profile on the World Economic Forum website as a partner in their agenda, and you can see all the great things they're doing there. And then decide, do you want to continue to give those people your money, right? Look into local credit unions, definitely do the research. Not here to say credit unions are perfect or anything like that. If you're interested in crypto, I definitely have resources can help you do that. You know, again, crypto, blockchain, there are some scary, nefarious things in that technology world. There's also some really beautiful things. I've been getting paid in crypto since 2013. I've never paid taxes because I have opportunities to make money without these people getting a handle of that. That's just my strategy, my approach, because I don't want to fund those systems. And now I'm going to be able to take the crypto that I've been making through my writing and my other activities and cash it out and buy land with it. I don't see how that's a negative. You know, I see that as a positive. And I did it all without using their money, right? Without using their system. That takes time. Remember, we can take small steps. But the financial system is a huge component, so please consider that. The most obvious at the moment, the medical system, the healthcare system. Many of us are rethinking our involvement with this system. Look, some people got real debilitating issues and they have to go to hospitals for certain things. Those nurses that are getting fired, the doctors that are getting fired, we're going to need them. Because we're going to need alternative healthcare systems. And for example, in Houston, where we're from, you guys might have heard about the lawsuit a couple months ago where a bunch of nurses walked out and they filed a lawsuit. Unfortunately, the courts were corrupt and they threw it out pretty quickly. And they've now established a precedent that, they can mandate nurses to get vaccinated. But I was able to connect with a lot of those nurses, and some of them have been rehired in private care, where they don't care about their vaccination status. But a lot of them are out there looking for new gigs, and they've got information that our communities need. We're going to need, the healers. We're going to need people to help, bring us back together when we're ill, and not necessarily relying on the Western medical system, but people that have that knowledge, maybe a more holistic approach. Take the best of the Western and bring in some of the more holistic and natural medicines. The point is that there are alternatives, and we need to support and or learn more about those that do exist. The political system. I think this the most basic thing is to stop giving these people your attention and your power, right? Voting for any evil is still evil. It doesn't really matter. And I hate to see that every few years, as more and more people wake up, it's like then the next election rolls around and people all of a sudden forget all the things they learned about, and they think that they can go vote and it's going to solve everything again. It's like, I'll just go there, but if you're starting new on your journey, these are the kind of people that have lied to you about everything since 9/11 and before. And if you're new to that journey, please look down those rabbit holes. So don't think that these people are going to let you win by the political system. I think people like Ron Paul, Bernie Sanders, and others have proven that. Anytime you build up a movement, a genuine movement, they'll just change the rules. They'll just change the rules and screw you over. So rejecting the political system and recognizing that we should give them their time and our time and energy. The last one is technology that I'll focus on. Technology is a big part of it. The phone that I've been holding during this talk, this is a privacy phone. This is a de-Googled, it's called the Above phone. If you're interested, check out abovephone.com. My friend Ramiro with the Greater Reset, he started manufacturing and producing these. So it's a de-Googled phone. What does that mean? It's a Pixel, Google Pixel. You're able to take everything Google off this, everything Android off this, basically strip it and just use it for its hardware. And then people like Romeo and others, will upload them with alternatives to everything you're used to. So for example, as we're traveling the country, we're not using Google Maps at all. We have 3 different open source maps on here. We're getting to test them out. Again, it's not necessarily always convenient. We're like, it looks different. How do we get used to this one, right? But think about that. We're so used to their systems that even using a different map is like, oh, it's not a Google map. My brain doesn't know what to do.
Remember
Because-
they had paper maps?
Yeah, that's kind of
Still there on
like, that's
that.
kind of what these are. These are download maps. You don't even need the internet. Like once you download, the whole country, you can just get around. You don't need to have service. But my point is that, so for me, I'm trying to live in line with those values, and I don't want to continue to use an Android, Google thing, or an Apple, this or that, but go to any store, and those are your options, right? Because they've created these monopolies, and again, you have to go make effort to get away from them. So I want to encourage you to check out, if you're interested in this or any others, there are others, but abovephone.com, but also the biggest thing is if you want to make these transitions, he has another initiative right now called Take Back Our Tech, takebackourtech.org. Check it out because, especially if you're new to this, if you get confused, just email him. He's very helpful. His goal right now is trying to help people get their computers off of Apple, off of Microsoft. Because you go to the store again, you buy a laptop, what has it got? Bill Gates, Microsoft in there, right? How do we want to talk about all the crazy things these people are doing and keep using their devices and keep filling their pockets, right? It's not consistent. So we got to take some steps. So I've committed myself now to helping other people. I will be doing a review of this phone if you follow my channel, Conscious Resistance, in the next couple weeks. But it's the same thing you're used to, it's just everything is alternative. So camera, maps, blah, blah, all the toys you want, but alternative open source. Now, of course, if you went and loaded Facebook on this, then you're definitely going to reduce your privacy pretty quickly because those apps trace you, and they get access to this phone. But at the least, you have a lot more control that most phones don't offer. So that's just one example, but there are many others. The point is recognizing that blindly embracing their technologies is not to our benefit, right? Now more and more people are recognizing the power of alternative social media because we realize the mainstream ones, they're censoring, they're not privacy-based, etc. It's kind of like that with everything. When they hand you something in the mainstream world, it's generally not, going to be good for you in the long term. So as I wrap up, guys, I just want to say that's what I'm focused on. Is how do we exit from these systems, the ones we just outlined, as well as the spiritual, mental, psychological systems, and build better systems. Some of us, again, we're not going to be the builders, but there are a lot of people who are building the next projects that we can support. One other tech one I will mention is there's an app, and this is not like a sponsorship or anything, this is just something I use because I know many people are looking for these tools. It's called Status, status.im, if you look that up. This is an encrypted, open source messaging app. I don't like Signal and some of the other ones because they're not, not to say they don't work, but there are some features I don't like. Status allows you to sign up without an email, without a phone number, without even a username. It's just a randomly generated key. If you're familiar with crypto, it's just a chat key or a QR code. And so, if I wanted to connect with you, I just scan your QR code and we're connected. And I can send it to an email if I want. But the point is, there are alternatives out there. We just need to seek. And I'm always trying to stay ahead of the cutting edge because I can't build this stuff. It's not my department. But I want to support those who are trying to build. And sometimes they're at the beginning stages. They're not perfect, but I want to support them because I want that to become normal. I want privacy to be normal. I want freedom to be normal, right? So it takes effort, it takes time, it takes energy. Guys, we're fighting for ourselves, but we're also fighting for the future generations. Our indigenous communities teach us to think about not only the steps that we take today and how they affect us here right now, but who they affect in the future, the coming 7 generations, and that's not, again, just an abstract case. Think about that. We have ourselves, parents, grandparents, maybe great-grandparents if you get to meet them. You got your kids, your grandkids. You're in the middle of that 7 generations, both sides, going back and forth. But also the ones 7 generations ahead of you that came before you, and the ones 7 generations behind you that will never meet. As I said earlier, they really, truly are depending on us to take action, to not be passive, to not be scared, to take that courage, and to stand up in different ways. If something I've said to you tonight applies, then please use it, please learn about it. Find the strategies that work for you guys as a community and continue to build, because there is a reason to hope. We are not alone. There are so many of us, guys. There's so many of us that are searching and seeking these answers. And I think if we hold that in our heart, if we remember that I believe we have a commitment to this, right? I want you to make a commitment right now, not to me, not to anybody in this room, but to yourself, your family, your higher power, to commit to not letting these things come to pass. As I said earlier, I don't know if we can stop their whole vision, stop the machine, but we can make sure that we thrive and survive through whatever's coming, right? Whatever comes this next decade and beyond. But it's up to us to do that. So please, make that commitment. Make that commitment to yourself, to your family, to your communities, whether you stay or you leave, to continue fighting, to continue standing for what we know is right. Thank you guys for your time. Just past time, I'm going to end the same way I always do, just because I want to end this way and we'll be done for tonight. Thank you guys. I end with this affirmation. It's an affirmation that came to me shortly after I got out of prison, and all the tough things I was telling you guys about earlier, just those struggles. It's something that stuck with me, and if it resonates with you, please feel free to repeat it. Don't repeat it if it doesn't resonate with you, because to me, these are words that if we each take them in and we understand them and we live them and we respect them as other people, it does ripple out and can change the world. So if you feel inclined, please repeat after me. I am powerful. Can we get a little more from you guys tonight? Let's do that one again. I am powerful.
I am powerful.
There we go. I am beautiful.
I am beautiful.
I am free.
I am free.
Thank you guys so much.